I said to go for cigarettes.
Yeah. Pay $10 a pack. How much are they at now?
Let's see, my grandfather, my step-grandfather, he went out for cigarettes. That was the story.
Never came back.
He never came back. My grandma, he didn't smoke.
Oy. All right, tonight I want to talk about the Parsha, BaOmer, which is on Sunday, and some things that connect. How it connects to bitachon, trusting in Hashem, Torah learning, and the mystical part of Torah, the Kabbalah. So let's try to talk about that. First, BaOmer is the 33rd day of the Omer. That comes on Sunday. So on Sunday, BaOmer, a few things happen. Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying. They were dying during the Omer because they were not respecting each other properly. BaOmer, that ceased. So it's a happy day. Also, it is before we get to that. Also, Rav Gedal Yeshua says that it is the last third of the Omer, which is when the Svarim say the light of Shavuos already starts to shine. There's already a spirituality in the world from Shavuos that you can tap into on BaOmer. It's when the ultimate preparation of Torah study is for Shavuos. The whole Omer, from Pesach until Shavuos, all those 49 days, we're supposed to be working on our Torah study, working on our commitment to Torah, learning more in depth. A few weeks ago we talked about a good idea might be to learn without interruptions, to pick 10 minutes a day when you shut off the phone and the tablet and the computer and everything, and just focus on Torah learning for 10 minutes. Different ways. But he says, the last third, which is close to Shavuos, that's when we really work on the Torah learning. And he cites from the Chassam Sofer, it could be those earlier sources, something else happened on BaOmer. That's the day when the manna started falling in the desert. Right, the food from heaven. That happened on BaOmer. Now what's the connection between BaOmer and the man? It's actually a medrash. It says as follows. Mikan hay Rav Shimon ben Yochai Omer. Rav Shimon bar Yochai says, Lo nitna Torah lidrosh el la'ochle haman. He says the Torah was only given for people to interpret that eat manna. Okay, what's that about? Okay, it said hayoshev v'darish v'lo hayoteh mehechan oichol v'shoyse mechan hayolovish mischase halo the Torah lidrosh el la'ochle man. When you eat the man, you didn't have to work for a living. You did not have to earn a livelihood and get money so you could purchase food. Food came from the heavens every day. He says only such a person could learn Torah. Oh, it's pretty intense. So it means like this, I think. That person obviously has to put in his hishtadlus, has to put in an effort to make a living, but he has to know that really where his success comes from is Hashem. Hashem is totally in charge, totally in control. The man is representative of bitachon, of living with trust in God. Because in the desert, you couldn't work for a living, there was a desert. You weren't allowed to keep the man from one day to another. You had to wait every morning and hope that Hashem was going to bring down this miraculous food and you would have something to eat. They point out actually that this is one of the biggest miracles in the testament to the truth of the Torah because, in addition, we think about all the miracles our ancestors saw, right? And unlike any other religion, in Judaism, it was our great-great-great-great-grandparents, our people, our blood, who experienced these miracles. It was not some other group, right? In Christianity, it was, this group saw Jesus do X, Y, Z. That's not like it is in Judaism. It was our great-great-great-grandparents saw this. So in addition to seeing the miracles of Egypt, the splitting of the Red Sea, and the giving of the Torah, which was the ultimate miracle, they also had every day, for 40 years in the desert, miraculous sustenance coming from the heavens. That every single day. Meaning, they saw a miracle daily for 40 years. That's pretty intense. We don't think about it like, the man, very nice, it happened. No, it happened every single day. So that was a bitachon. They had to have trust in Hashem that their food was going to come, and they weren't able to save it over. If they would save it over, we know they would become wormy, and they couldn't eat it, things like that. So it represents this trust in God. If a person wants to have a connection to Torah, be successful in Torah learning, you have to have trust in Hashem. They go together. Obviously, we always talk about how Torah is different than any other subject. You can be a horrible person and be a great math professor. You can be a horrible person and you can be a great literature professor and know Shakespeare. You cannot be a horrible person, not be a spiritual person, and know Torah well. Torah is not supposed to be learned. It's obviously an intellectual exercise, and it's one of the most rigorous intellectual exercises that you can do. But it needs this spiritual component. It needs bitachon. In fact, I probably mentioned this. I think I mentioned this, but I just keep thinking about it. I love it. There's a guy, Cal Newport. He's a professor. Oh, you weren't here, so I can say the story again because Darren wasn't here. There's a professor, Cal Newport. He wrote a book called Deep Work. His whole book is about how he's writing for people working working in the like white collar jobs, the information sector. And his thing is that if you want to be successful and stand out from the crowd, you need to be engaged in deep work to be able to focus and accomplish things without getting distracted. And he says that's really what the economy values. So I'm reading this book, and it's very interesting. He's also against being too connected on social media that distracts you from your goals and things like that. And he has a chapter about the best type of intellectual activity you can engage in to train your brain to do this deep work is Talmud study. That's what he writes, Talmud study. The guy's not Jewish at all, and he starts writing about how when you study the Talmud and study the Torah, you have to be engaged for hours at a time and in a very complex back and forth, and it's rigorous, and you have to focus really hard. And he talks about how he has a friend who didn't grow up Orthodox, but he started studying the Talmud in a synagogue in Spring Valley, New York. And this guy, he says that he had multiple degrees from several Ivy League universities. You might be familiar with the Ivy League. It used to be very prestigious colleges before about a year or two ago. And he said that the people that were in religious schools since they were kids could dance intellectual circles around them because they grew up studying the Talmud. So like in this book, this non-Jewish professor starts talking about how important Talmud study is for the brain. But in addition to being good for the brain, which I just think is interesting, it needs to have this spiritual component. We need to have bitachon. Rav Gedalia Shor says another component about the man. The man was a spiritual food. This was not a physical food and not a normal thing. Right? When they ate the man, they didn't have to go to the bathroom after. It just got totally absorbed in the system. It was a very spiritual food. So he writes that to study Torah, we have to become spiritually pure also. And it works. It helps. It works both ways. Nefesh Chaim discusses that for a person to be successful in Torah, you need two things. He says you need something called Yirah Shamayim, fear of God, and you need to have the actual Torah learning. The fear of God is like the silo, and the Torah itself is the grain that goes in the silo. He says if you don't have fear of God, then nothing's going to protect your grain, and you need to have both things. But they play off each other. The more Torah you study, the more fear of Hashem you have. The more fear of Hashem you have, the more Torah you study. And they both feed off of each other. So we're saying that when Shavuot, and the preparation for Shavuos in our Torah study, not only do we have to work on ourselves in actually spending time to study the Torah and focusing on studying the Torah, but we also work on ourselves in our trust in Hashem, meaning that's solidifying our belief in God and that everything comes from Hashem. And also working on our fear of heaven. That means being careful to do mitzvos, not do averos. Now, there's another aspect, I think, of the mon, right? Because if you're constantly spending your time making a living and that's all you could do, you're not going to have time to study Torah, right? It has to be a balance. So we mentioned that during the days of Sefira, there are 48 things that are needed to acquire Torah. And if you look through the list, some of them make a lot of sense that we talked about, and some of them are very odd. The ones that make a lot of sense are sitting and learning, having a Rebbe, having students, discussing Torah topics with friends, very important. And then we talked about another category last week called humility. That has to do with the Yirah Shamayim, fear of God. A humble person is afraid of Hashem, and he treats other people respectfully. But there's a third category which is also odd. It's called Histapkas B'muat. These categories are the Vilna Gaon. Histapkas B'muat means being satisfied with a little. It talks about miyut derech eretz, working a little, miyut eating a little, miyut tainug, a little enjoyment, miyut sheina, a little sleep. Now, it doesn't say to negate these things, right? It doesn't say don't be happy, don't tell jokes, don't sleep, don't work, don't eat. No, a person has to minimize it. Which means if a person wants to be a Torah scholar and acquire Torah, have that relationship with Hashem, the focus in his life has to be spirituality. The focus can't be going, which restaurant am I going to go today, right? Back in my day when I grew up in Lakewood, there was like 1.5 restaurants. There was Pizza Plus, they didn't even have anywhere you could sit, and there was this like Chinese place that was like sort of open sometimes, but not really, and you never knew when it was going to be open. Now, there's about 30,000 restaurants 20 minutes away that you can go to eat whatever you want. If a person's life is just focused on which restaurant he's going to go to, and he's just obsessed with his physicality, and that's his geschmack in life, no chance he's going to become a Torah scholar. But on the other hand, a person doesn't have to starve himself and just eat matzah every day and drink some water. You're allowed to enjoy food. You're supposed to enjoy food. But it's supposed to be the right amount, not too much. Every person's different, right? Imagine them, right? So the idea is, as we prepare for Shavuos and become Torah scholars, we also have the Istamkus B'muad. We have to learn that the focus should be spirituality, and therefore we limit the physical pleasures we have. Again, not eliminate, but within balance. So another interesting thing happened Lag BaOmer. Right, if you've ever been in Israel, I don't think they're going this year, Meron.
No.
They're not allowed to go, right?
Not alone.
So it used to be what? It used to be 1 million people went? Something like
I don't think it's people.
several hundred thousand, huh?
Yeah.
Several hundred thousand people we went to Meron.
The collapse.
Right, yeah. Meron is the kever of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's yortzeit, he passed away on Lag BaOmer. Now why is that significant? It's significant because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who revealed the Kabbalah, revealed the hidden Torah, the Zohar. Right? He was the one who elucidated ideas passed down from Moshe to Sinai about the hidden, how God operates creation, different hidden things like that. It was a new level of understanding of Torah that happened because of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, also what Gedal Yeshua points out about Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, by the way, you were never there for Rabbi Nathan Shore, right, in Sons of Israel?
No, I never
So,
had the pleasure of meeting.
this was Mr. Umensky and I as rabbi growing up.
Yeah.
This is his uncle, Gedal Yeshua.
Oh, really?
Yes, this is his uncle. So quoting Rabbi Shore's uncle. Rabbi Shore's uncle, Rabbi Shore. So he points out that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai did all this learning when he was in a cave running away from the Romans, and he had tremendous faith in Hashem, and all he had to eat was, God made a miracle that a little stream flowed by his cave, and a little carob tree grew, so that he had what to eat. So I think he was there for 12 years, and all he had to eat and drink was the stream that Hashem provided and the carob tree. So Rav Gedal Yeshua says this was another person. Lo nitna Torah ela lo ochlei haman. This was like eating the manna, because his sustenance came from total trust in Hashem. And he said specifically Rav Shimon Bar Yochai needed to have that, because since he was revealing a new level of Torah, it had to be that his Torah came about through this trust in Hashem, that his sustenance only came from God. Just like the written Torah and the oral Torah given at Mount Sinai had to be given to people that were eating manna, so too the revelation of the Kabbalah, of the mystical part of Torah, had to be given through somebody who ate man. And that's Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Okay, then he goes on to say that another message of Lag BaOmer. Yeah, this is Sunday. Another message of Lag BaOmer is Sfira is 2/3 of the way up. Right? 49 days. We're supposed to be working on Torah study. We were supposed to be working on the 48 ways to acquire Torah, to sit and learn, to learn more, to work on not going after our stomachs, to learn how to treat people better, learn how to be humble. And it's 33 out of 49 days, 2/3 of the way done. So he says, you didn't start, you probably just want to give up. Right? It's like me with the diet. If I go into the teacher's room and there's some donuts there, and then there's some other stuff there, and then by lunchtime I'm like, I just give up. What's the point? I already had donuts this morning. Right? That's how it goes. So the message of Lag BaOmer is not to give up, because what was the other significant thing that happened on Lag BaOmer? Rabbi Akiva's students stopped dying. Now, let's think about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, and they all died. Can you imagine how depressed he was after that? Imagine you spend your whole life teaching students. You have how many people fit into Madison Square Garden? 30,000, 40,000, 50,000? You can almost fill up Madison Square Garden with his students, and they all pass away. You'd think he'd be depressed, just give up on life. But that's not what he did. He started again, and he only had 5 students. One of his students was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who revealed the Kabbalah. And the oral Torah that we have now, the whole Talmud, flows through Rabbi Akiva and his 5 students, because he didn't give up. The message of Lag BaOmer is, if you haven't used Sfira well until now, you haven't committed to Torah, don't give up. Rabbi Akiva didn't give up. The difference between a tzaddik and a rasha is not that a rasha makes mistakes and does averas and a tzaddik doesn't. The difference is that a tzaddik keeps getting up. A righteous person, he keeps trying, no matter what.
Not those 5 students, they were pretty brave.
Yeah.
Being that everybody else had died.
Right.
Did they get special recognition?
They're huge. They're huge. They're the basis of the whole Talmud that we have flows through them.
Okay.
So look. They point out. Imagine how much more Torah we would have had if those 24,000 students survived.
Right.
We have all the Torah we have now is from those 5 students. So now, anyone's good at math can tell me how many times 5 goes into 24,000. Quite a bit, several thousand. Okay, so that's Lag BaOmer. We're saying that Lag BaOmer is significant because it's the day the manna started falling, which signifies trust in Hashem, which signifies living a spiritual life, and also signifies not focusing our whole lives on physicality, but rather spirituality. That's why the light of Shavuot starts shining on Lag BaOmer, because it's the day when the manna started falling. That's the yahrzeit of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, who revealed the Kabbalah, who was an eater of man, an eater of totally ensconced in spirituality. And also, it tells us never to give up, because Rabbi Akiva, his students stopped dying in Lag BaOmer, and he could have given up, but he didn't. Okay, now, a similar message in the Parsha, believe it or not. The Parsha starts, read it a little bit, the mincha is at, I got time. But 8, mincha is at 8, right? Plenty of time. Okay. Parsha starts like this. This is the wrong Parsha. Okay. Behar. Page 696, if you want to follow along. If not, you just want to listen, also good. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe bar Sinai lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe at Mount Sinai, saying, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim. Speak to the Jewish people, saying, Ki savu la'aretz, when you come into the land, asher ani nosein lachem, which I give you, v'shavta ha'aretz, you'll dwell in the land. Shabbos l'Hashem, it should be a Sabbath, a sabbatical to God. Sheish shanim tizr sadecha. For 6 years you should plant your fields. V'sheish shanim tizmor kamecha. And for 6 years you should prune your vineyards. V'asafta es tuasa, and you gather your produce. V'shana hashviyas, in the 7th year, Shabbat Shabbason yel haaretz, it'll be a Sabbath for the land. Shabbos l'Hashem, sadcha lo sizra, you should not plant your fields. V'charmecha lo sizmor, and do not prune your vineyards. We are commanded, we know that every 7th year, we have to let the earth lie fallow. So you may ask, what are we supposed to eat if we don't farm the land in the 7th year? So if we look later, the Torah tells us what we'll eat. 25, this is in Perek Chaf Hey, Pasuk Yites, 19. I'll start with 18. Hashem says, do my statutes and my laws, tishmeru v'asisem, guard them and do them, v'yishavtem al haaretz levetach, and dwell in the land with trust, securely, dwell securely in the land, v'natzna haaretz pirya v'achaltem l'seiva, and I will give the land fruit, and you'll eat to be satiated, v'yishavtem levetach aleh, and you'll eat confidently, v'yichis omru, and if you'll say, ma neichel b'shana shvis, what are we going to eat in the 7th year? We didn't plant, we didn't gather anything as to us in our crops. V'tivisi es b'chazel, I'll put my blessing lachem to you, b'shana ashis in the 6th year, v'asas atvuah l'shalosh shanim, and I'll give produce for 3 years. Now why 3 years? Because, let's think about it. If I'm not, in the 6th year I need 3 years, because I'm not eating the 7th year. In the 8th year, I need to plant, so it's not going to be ready till the 9th year. So I now need produce to eat in the 6th year, the 7th year, and the 8th year. So the Torah says, don't worry about it. You're not going to work for a whole year as a farmer? Don't worry about it. You're going to get a triple crop yield in year 6. So you'll have to eat for the 6th year, the 7th year, and the 8th year. Now, as an aside, it was very interesting. Someone pointed this out to me, and it's very impressive. You think about it. If you were going to make up a religion, making up different laws, and you look at the religions, what do they usually promise things? Promise, if you follow my religion, you're going to get heaven, and it's going to be amazing. Right? Some religions even say that a person gets 70 virgins in the next world. Okay, well, this is not a falsifiable claim. Maybe yeah, maybe no. No one's coming back to tell us if it's true. Well, if you're going to make up a religion, would you say, hey, guys, don't work in the 7th year, and I promise you in the 6th year you're going to have 3 times as much as you need? Not a very smart thing to do if you're lying. What does make sense is that the master of the world, who controls everything, wrote this and promised the Jewish people that if you listen to my laws, this is going to happen. Because I'll tell you, if you're just making this up, you're going to have a religion for 7 years, and then back to square one. But the idea here in Shavuos when we keep Shemitah, we're recognizing that Hashem created the world. That He is the source of our success. And they say, this is Rav Gedalia Shur again. Shemitah in the 7th year, when you see in the 6th year that it was 3 times the amount that you should have had, that's supposed to teach you where your success comes from the other 6 years. The other 6 years, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I was farming normally, and I got enough produce for a year. It's supposed to teach us the 6th year. Oh yeah, your success in year 1 to 5 also. That wasn't because of you. That was also because of me. That was also because of Hashem. Rav Matziel Solomon Zatzal, he said a nice parable for bitachon. How we're supposed to have trust. He said, man, 150 years ago, a guy walks into the shtetl and says, guess what I have? I have a horseless carriage. He says, a horseless carriage? That's impossible. Let me see. So he takes him out, puts him in this Model T4. The guy gets out, starts cranking it. Right? They both get in the car, and it's going very slow. So the guy from the shtetl says, this ain't working. I'm just going to hit it. I'll hit it like I hit the horse. And all of a sudden, the car starts moving faster and faster. He hits it more. It's faster and faster. He says, look, just like a horse. So what does the guy think? The guy thinks the fact that he's hitting the car is what makes it go faster. No, it's really going faster because of the engine. Just needed time to warm up. Rav Solomon says the same thing in our lives. We go to work. We do what we have to do to earn a living. We think we're doing it. He says, no, Hashem is really the one who's providing with us with our sustenance. Just like in the 6th year, He gives a triple crop yield. He's giving us in the years 1 to 5 also what we need. Even though we're going through the motions, it's really all coming from Hashem. That's bitachon. That's trust. The same thing we were just talking about with the man. Just a plug before I forget. Shameless self-promotion here. We're starting a class Sunday morning at JLC at 8:30 after 7:45 davening called about Shar Bitachon. Shar Bitachon is a book which was written by Rabbeinu Bachya ben Ibn Bekuda about 100 years ago, and it's a sefer about how to learn to live with trust in God. Because let's face it, it's not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do, especially when things are difficult. When a person's sick, when a person loses his job, it's very, very hard to trust in Hashem during those tough times. So we're going to be learning once a week this book and trying to improve our own lives and work together, trying to learn to live with more trust in God, which is very important because the Vilna Gaon says the entire Torah was given just to come to trust in God, just to learn how to trust in God. Now when I say trust in God, I mean living with it, meaning putting it into practice in our lives. And that's what I want to talk about next. Rav Ruderman points out that after we've done learning about Shemitah, Chaf Hei Yud Daled, there's another mitzvah that comes up. And he wants to know what the connection is. What is the connection? Chaf Hei Yud Daled, the pasuk says, I think I wrote down the wrong pasuk here. 25, 20, 21. Oh, here it is. 14. When you sell something, when you buy something, don't oppress your friend, which means you're not allowed to overcharge somebody. You're not allowed to. I was once speaking to a guy in the mall. There used to be like a hobby store in the mall, and he's very happy because he bought like a ukulele that was worth $10, and he sold it for like $4,000. He got the person to think that it was like some antique or something. They did the prank recently where they went into, it's kind of funny, I think they gave back the money in the end, but they got a bunch of shoe influencers, that's like their thing, designer shoes, and they posted about designer shoes, and they made like a really fancy store, and they filled it with Payless shoes. And they got people to pay like $4,000 for shoes, like $400 for a pair of shoes, and then they basically embarrassed them on camera saying, do you know this is from Payless? Like, no. But anyway, there's a prohibition to cheat someone in business. You're not allowed to overcharge them. Now, Rabbi Ruderman asks, we're just talking about like planting and farming. Why are we talking about cheating someone in business? Because he says it's the same underlying concept, the same theme. If you have, Shemitah is supposed to teach us that our success comes from Hashem, our financial success comes from God. That's Shemitah, what we're just talking about. If you have belief in Hashem, that your success is coming from Him, and your financial success is coming from Him, then you don't need to cheat someone in business. You could follow the halachas. Right? Why do you cheat somebody? Because you think, I need to get this money. I need this money. I want this money. No. If you believe in God, you know that you're going to get whatever you're supposed to get, you're going to get. You don't need to cheat to get it. So when a person internalizes bitachon, trust in Hashem, he doesn't have to cheat. There's a story I like telling over. My Yeshiva told me, it was in Bnei Brak for years, there was a print shop. Back in the days when they had print shops, before you were born, people used to print things off, actually, instead of just like emailing and texting. It was like pieces.
When I was in junior high school, I used to run the mimeograph.
Oh, yeah?
I was on the mimeograph.
That's way before my time. Mimeographs even before my time. We had it, but we had pieces of paper back in the day. So you had a print shop in Bnei Brak. So a guy, there's rules if you want to open up a store. If you're allowed to open up a store as a competitor right across the street from somebody, you're not really allowed to do that. It depends on a lot of circumstances, but Torah says you're not allowed to do that. So what happened? The guy had the print shop for years. He was the only show in town. A print shop opened right across the street from him. So what the guy did? This guy went to the guy and he said, I've been in this business for a long time, and I want to tell you, if you need any help, you let me know, because I know all the ins and outs, I know the customers. Let me know if I can help you in any way. That's someone with bitachon, someone who trusts that his parnasa is going to come to him from God, as long as he does the right thing. You can confidently go into his competitor and say that. Right? I don't think you're going to find Pepsi doing that to Coke anytime soon. Okay, so just to summarize what we were talking about, Shavuos is coming, so there's a time when we study Torah more, and we study Torah with better quality we're talking about, than quantity also. Quality is important. Quality of our Torah learning. And we said that Torah is not just an intellectual exercise, but it has to be also done with trying to develop a relationship with Hashem, trying to have bitachon, trust in Hashem, and that all of our success, in the end, we do what we do, but just like the guy who was hitting the car, we have to remember that it's not us who's responsible for our success, it's Hashem. That's what bitachon means. All right. Yeah. And now we're going to daven. Davening is a great exercise in bitachon.
Why do we apply that? Like